Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed educators and passionate innovators, welcome to the ESC Region 19 EDUC Summit at the magnificent Starlight Event Center. We are delighted to have you join us as we explore artificial intelligence and its groundbreaking influence on K-12 education. Today, we stand at the forefront of a technological revolution, with AI reshaping our lives remarkably. From healthcare to transportation and entertainment to communication, artificial intelligence is transforming the world as we know it. And now, the time has come to discover AI's profound impact on future generations' education. At the EDUC Summit, we have prepared to share critical information and resources to consider as AI becomes more present in K-12 education. Together, we will explore how AI-powered solutions empower teachers to deliver more engaging and practical instruction while enabling students to unlock their full potential. The future of education is here, and it's brimming with possibilities. So, let's ignite the spark of innovation and embark on this thrilling journey at the ESC Region 19 EDUC Summit.
It is through the usage of our phones, through the usage of different applications in our devices, whether it's a tablet or a laptop. And you've also seen some different examples of software, whether web-based or app-based, that was shared with you today. And some of them were very familiar because we've seen our teachers using it, right? So it's going to continue. And it just so happened that ChatGPT has become this big word. It has become one of the trends, and so it's being talked about. And I think through the history that was shared with also with you today, you've seen how it has started way back 1940s, right? Even earlier than that, and it just continues to develop. It's just so that ChatGPT is your generative response transformer that allows you to use your own human language to communicate with this online system. So there's a lot of fears, right? A lot of apprehension. And so what do we do? As a professional development specialist, it's important that we put this in proper context based on what's going on in the classroom. You know, what teachers need to know, need to be aware of, because students, guess what? They're not going to stop exploring any kind of system that uses AI. They have all the time. It's the adults who struggle with time, right? Because we have a lot of responsibilities and obligations. But I think we also need to keep an open mind that we can't just make the banning as the answer, just like the way we ban books, right, in the libraries. We have to keep an open mind and also check on our bias. I think that's also very important because we're preparing children for a future that we're not aware of. We don't know, right? And so if we are to prepare them, we need to anchor back, again, especially for educators, strength in our pedagogy, in our best practices. That's the most important thing, because those are the practices that will help our students understand the proper use of AI when it comes to their education and to their future.
I was going to say adaptive learning. First of all, thank you to all the teachers that are here in the room. Very appreciative of all the work that you do for our future. But adaptive learning, I think AI is a tool that can really, when a student and when a parent, when anybody gets on ChatGPT, for instance, sees the power at their fingertips, it reminded me of when Google came out, right? It's like, wow, like this ability to search all this information and the internet, and so Microsoft's here on the panel, but there was a big investment that they made because this is the next revolution. And so I feel like the teachers that are here embrace it, use it to your advantage, help write engaging curriculum, but also have the students be able to tell you what they like about it, because I think that's going to be, you still need that teacher, you still need that empathy piece in the classroom that AI cannot do, but I feel like it's adaptive learning is where AI is definitely going to help make an impact in education.
Yeah, thanks for the question. We obviously made it, as mentioned, we made a huge investment in OpenAI, funding the development of GPT-4, which is the underlying technology for a lot of the tools that are being built on a layer of generative AI, this new generation of artificial intelligence, which is really, a quantum leap forward in technological and computing ability, right? we throw around the word AI a lot, and as mentioned, we've been using AI for forever, for the last 10 years. If you've done a web search, guess what? You're using AI, right? If you've gone onto Netflix and clicked on the recommended, next show to watch, guess what? You're using AI, or maybe AI is using you, right? So really what's happening is now we have the opportunity to surface that to the user level and allow the user to interact directly with this really, really powerful new architecture that is doing things that we didn't even really know could be done, right? So if you think about, when GPT-3 or ChatGPT-3, which was built on, the 3.5 model, came out a couple months ago, it could do some cool stuff. And then a couple months later, GPT-4 comes out and it can do all this other stuff that we didn't even know, right? Now, the people who built it didn't know it was going to be able to do like text summarization, language translation, research grade chemistry, mathematics. It can code now, all this stuff, right? So it's really this step function in not only people's ability, in not only the AI's ability, but the power and productivity that unlocks for everyday people who can now directly interact with it. You don't need an intermediary. A lot of cool, the speaker that was on before, showed a lot of cool ed tech companies kind of using, tools that are building ways for people to interact with it. But you can do that yourself, right? You can go directly to the underlying technology and interact with it directly, which is just a game changer, right? So we see that as a kind of a way to really give a huge boost to worldwide worker productivity, right? That's in every sector. It's going to touch every sector. It's going to touch medicine. It's going to touch, boring office jobs like most of us here have, right? In administration, paper shufflers. It's going to help. It's going to help educators hugely, right? I mean, whose educators are feeling overworked and overstressed? Anybody?
Right here. Yeah.
Somebody? Yeah, everybody, right? Imagine the boost that they're going to get, right, in job satisfaction and retention of teachers and staff just by taking that little, extra little bit of drudgery out of their day-to-day, right? If they can have, when I think about it, I think of it not as a tool, right? We always think about it as a tool. A tool is like a screwdriver, right? This is really like not even a Swiss Army knife. It's like a Swiss Army knife, to the 1,000th power, right? So when I think of it as having my own personal team of really, really good white-collar workers that can do pretty much anything I want, right? And my job now is not to use a tool, it's to manage a team of productivity-enhancing things, right, that can do a number of things. But I'm still in control, I'm still in the driver's seat, I'm kind of that project manager, right, if you will. But if I'm a teacher, I have now a TA that can do lesson planning. He's a really, really good lesson planner. I have, who can be an expert in particular pedagogical techniques, right? Who can serve as an on-demand tutor for my students, right? Ubiquitous on-demand tutoring. Think about what that's going to unlock for education, right? If you have, now you send, someone made a point, right? You send students home, they have to work, they get home at 11 p.m. They have access all the time on demand to not only a tutor, but a debate coach, to somebody who can role play for them, right? If you want to see a really cool, sometimes you have to see it to believe it, right? Khan Academy, Conmigo. There's a really cool YouTube video. Search for it, just Khan Academy GPT-4 demo, and it'll like really blow your mind. The kind of things that can be done, direct to students to help boost learning outcomes for students. And then also, I think for staff, for teaching staff, it's going to be a game changer. We're rolling out a number of productivity tools. Every Microsoft product is going to have some AI power built into it. Boosting student outcomes, boosting teacher and teaching staff productivity and job satisfaction. I mean, it's going to be a game changer. Every part of education is going to be transformed.
Good morning, everybody, and again, thank you for having me here today. It's wonderful to be with a room full of educators and people who are thinking about the future, and like you said, our children who are the future. Yes, we've actually had AI in our hospitals and healthcare delivery systems for many decades, and in fact, it wasn't until I became in charge of a service line, cardiovascular services, where, from from heart attacks to diagnosing to treatment to interventions and surgery, I began very quickly observing the machine. And I'm not a clinician, I am an allied health person, I have a bachelor's of science, but when I was in administrative roles, I would walk through these rooms watching these telemetry machines give us information, right? Like if you've seen anybody in a hospital, you'll see their respiratory rate, you'll see their pulse, you'll see even an EKG going on at the same time, so that nurses and doctors walking in, you can kind of glance up and say, oh, this patient is stable, nothing's happening. Well, even further back from that, the old paper EKG machines, some of you might be too young to remember this, but you used to lay down on a little table and they would put a bunch of electrodes, and it actually went to a little wire machine that was reading your heart, kind of like a lie detector machine. It wasn't computerized that much. You plug it in and you could get a strip of paper, and what the doctor would do would tear off the strip of paper and look at it and say, oh, you have a normal sinus rhythm heartbeat, we're okay, and we would move on to another test for diagnosis. Well, somewhere between the 1980s and the early 1990s, these machines that we're talking about, EKG machines, they became smart. They began to recognize what a normal QRS wave looked like in the heartbeat. It began to also collect information and actually print in the old-fashioned way, like a little computer would print. This is normal, this is sinus, this is tachycardia. And it began to give the physician a heads up what to prioritize. Oh, we have a bad EKG here, so you better prioritize this patient before you look at the sinus normal rhythm patient. So that AI has been embedded in our technology for decades. However, as I grew up in the healthcare industry, which I literally did, I went from undergrad into a hospital and my MBA afterwards, and I grew up, literally growing up alongside a bunch of smart, independent thinkers who are called physicians. They're very competitive people. They train on their own. They don't do group study. They're very competitive. If you want to be the head resident, the chief resident, there's only a spot for one chief resident. So you get the idea. Very independent learners, very independent thinkers. And when I saw this come out in the hospital in the form of patient safety, that doctor didn't tell me what I'm supposed to do. We began to recognize, and we wrote papers about it, the quality chasm it's called, and that's when we began to realize that we're making so many medical mistakes in healthcare that we can't even keep up with. And what told us this were the computers that were now becoming usable for us. They weren't just running air conditioners in the hospital. They were supplying us, administration people, nurses, with information, and we began to work on that. So that became the beginning of what we see today, harnessing information over decades, different millions of data points, literally. If you think about a human body, all the data points you could create, not just your pulse, your address, your method of payment, your insurance, all of that information is leading us today and what you will see tomorrow. And I'll stop there because there's so much to talk about. But if you think about robotic surgery, how many in this room know somebody? Raise your hand if you know an individual who has had surgery by a robot. Okay, it's still kind of quiet, but it's happening. Robots are doing surgery, but they're still being managed by the surgeon, but not at the body, which is really interesting. So I'll leave it at that.
And thank you. There's a ton of implications from administrative tasks to instructional tasks that AI can help us improve on. It's about helping people understand how these tools can be helpful in their lives, but also understanding the pitfalls that are available or that come with using this technology. With the math people over here, I remember I was the same way. That's how I fell in love with computers. I was great at science, I was great at social studies, English, but I struggled in math. And when I found out the computer can do math for me, my world was changed. I remember taking apart calculators just to try to figure out how they work. And I was like, I want to work like a calculator. I want my brain to work that way. And so I never imagined that this world would come, but it's come very quickly, and we live in this world now. As educators, as K-12 public sector employees, we have to understand that these tools are going to quickly change and get better and better year after year. ChatGPT has been around for quite some time, since I believe 2016 when it started, founded earlier than that. But in the past 3 years, it quickly evolved and became very popular, and it's going to evolve so much more quickly. I understand that Elon Musk published an article to pause the development of that because of social implications. And that's a little scary. And those are things that we have to be concerned about or aware of. But it's about using the tools to the best of our ability. I hear about colleges that restrict the use of ChatGPT because it can write your essays for you And that's a scary world we live in. Technology should make students' lives easier. It is adaptive learning. If a student struggles, use the tools for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons. Rather than grading the article that they wrote, have the student articulate it to you in a video. I saw some of the presentations earlier today. If a student can teach something, you know they've learned it. So we have to change the way we assess. If we assess with A, B, C, D, JFK questions, the tools are going to succeed all the time. Kids will find a way to cheat. It's a cat and mouse game, just like we have with cybersecurity and cyber criminals, bad actors. Still a cat and mouse game. It's going to revolve around that kind of world. The tools will enable the good guys and the bad guys. It's about working to build a better world, changing our mindset, having that digital literacy component to understand how the tools are beneficial.